Hi, Julie. Hi, Beth.
Hello.
I think they seem to be going to vote you three, but if anybody pops up,
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. And I see 5 board members, so we're good, right? Oh, there's Camille. Okay. All right, let's call the meeting to order. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted and the meeting was advertised in the Hunterdon County Democrat and the Courier News. Formal action may be taken. Please stand for the flag salute.
roll call first, Carol.
Oh. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello.
Here.
Mr. Emmons.
Here.
Mrs. Fiore.
Here. Sorry, I couldn't find my button.
Mrs. Flores.
Here.
Mrs. Pogorski. Mr. Wallace. Mr. Zwerling.
Here.
Mrs. Apple.
Here.
And Mrs. Simon.
Okay, now can we stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which we stand, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we have a superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mrs. Sample. I'm just going to switch over to a new tab and share my goals, or our goals, I should say. Tonight, we're going to do 2 things. As I flip over, we're going to talk about both district goals and Board of Education goals. And I'll introduce her in a few minutes. We have Gwen Thornton from the New Jersey School Boards Association joining us. Gwen, before I go, what I'd like to do is update the board on district goals, and then we'll talk about board goals to see some of the commonalities between the district goals and the board goals.
Perfect.
So I'm going to share my screen. Is that all right, Gwen?
Absolutely.
Okay. So district goals. We are going to start with these. You should all be able to see the district goals on the screen. So tonight we talk about 2 types of goals, Board of Education goals and district goals. And like I said, in a few minutes, we'll talk about, Gwen will talk a little bit about the difference between the 2. But I'm going to take a couple of minutes and talk about some of the action steps that we'll be taking in terms of district goals for this year. And I'm going to start first with our mission, as well as our strategic goals, which are guiding forces on what we hope to achieve. And I wanted to start with this quote from Daniel Goleman. And those of you from the public and even from the board and the administration who were here about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago at this point, where we started to talk about our strategic plan, this appeared as a theme throughout our strategic work. And it says, focus is the hidden driver of excellence. And the reason I like this is because it really tells us that focusing on just a few, maybe 3 or 4 year-long goals that are tied to our mission and tied to our strategic plan is really a good way to be successful in school districts. So I like this quote, and I always remember that focus, focusing on a few narrow things is important and really is the hidden driver of excellence. So briefly, I'll go over what tethers us all together, all of our goals together. So first is our mission, which is empowering members of our community to lead purposeful lives with integrity, to cultivate a spirit of discovery, and to embrace connections in our diverse global society. And this was developed from that strategic planning committee about a year and a half ago. So our strategic goals, first is inquisitive learning. And you'll find in this goal, there are some key terms like inquiry-based framework, interest-driven learning, individual and collaborative problem solving. All of those key words really add up to our inquisitive learning goal, which we strive for in terms of our student population as well as our parent population and our overall community. Our partnerships goal, you'll notice some key words in our partnerships goal, and this is our second goal, and these are in no particular order. Talks about fostering meaningful educational opportunities at multiple levels, local, regional, and global, and that these opportunities are aimed at preparing learners to be engaged and productive citizens with real-world connections. So overall, our partnerships strategic goal really has us fostering meaningful partnerships, not only in our locality, but also beyond just local Reddington Township. And our final strategic goal is our social awareness goal. And some of the key words in our social awareness goal talk about our learners feeling connected, valued, and secure in both digital and non-digital learning environments. And that not only do they feel secure in these learning environments, but that they have an awareness of their self, others, and the environment. So our social awareness goal not only transcends some of the social and emotional work that we're doing, but also transcends the work that we do in terms of educational and environmental sustainability. We see the two as interconnected in our social awareness goal. So these are the 3 goals that brought us together as a leadership team when we met for our leadership retreat over the summer. And we had a nice workshop where we talked about some of the things that we wanted to achieve this year. And I wanted to present this to you in terms of some of the action steps that we're going to see happen, not only at the district level, but at the school level as well. So we'll start first with inquisitive learning. And I'll tell the Board of Ed, I don't necessarily plan on going bullet by bullet through each individual building, but rather I want to highlight some of the overall themes that we'll see across the district, and then a few things for each building or each group of buildings in terms of each goal. So first, some key themes under inquisitive learning. First and foremost, we're talking about continuing our monthly parent, student, and even staff communications, newsletters, even in faculty meetings, maybe even workshops, definitely workshops for staff and some for parents as well, to raise awareness of inquisitive learning, because we recognize that this is still relatively new. We're only in our second year. So that's definitely a key theme. Across the district, we continue to do teacher leader training in inquiry. And this summer, we had a really powerful workshop where we invited some teachers from Hunterdon Central and partnered with our high school, where our teacher leaders actually worked with the Hunterdon Central teachers and gave them a 2-day workshop collaboratively to have some of the Hunterdon Central teachers walk through their own inquiry teacher research projects as well. So if we go over, so those are some of our themes. We continue to want to be an inquisitive faculty and staff along with our students, and we want to raise that awareness to our parent population beyond the inside the school district. We definitely want to engage our parents in inquisitive learning through newsletters. So you'll notice at White House and Three Bridges, we piloted an inquisitive learning project in 3rd grade last year. We're going to continue that project this year and refine it now that we've done the pilot. So we'll see that grade 3, we're going to do a second administration of doing a passion project in grade 3. And they're going to have the inquiry-based passion projects work on having them be more aligned with literacy and research units. At Hollenbrook, we're going to move up to Hollenbrook and start to do a little bit more work at Hollenbrook. You'll notice that we're actually going to enhance our discovery lab this year, and this is going to be built-in professional development for the teachers to join Dr. McGibbon to learn some strategies that she uses in Discover Lab that can traverse all classrooms beyond just the Discover Lab. And then at RMS, the faculty and staff are going to work with Mrs. Moffitt and Dr. Moss and sharing inquiry-based learning lessons and ideas at faculty meetings. And the 8th grade staff is going to start to work on planning some sort of 8th grade capstone project that we anticipate rolling out in years to come. And then I mentioned across the district, we're going to be doing professional development opportunities. We already partnered with Hunterdon Central, and we're going to do a collection of interest inventories so that we can give them to the teachers so that they can use them over the course of the school year. Our partnerships goal for partnerships, Three Bridges and White House, are going to continue to align teachers' professional development plans with trying out and curating a bank of partnerships. And this bank of partnerships is going to have three components district-wide, I should say. We're going to create a bank of partnerships for virtual field trips. And that'll be our first database of partnerships. Our second one will be a database of partnerships for local and regional and state community members that may want to come in either virtually or in person to our schools and work with our students if there's an area of expertise that they have. And then thirdly, our partnerships are going to extend with creating banks of resources for families in need. This is something that we piloted over at White House School last year, and we're going to expand it throughout the district. White House and Three Bridges are going to include partnerships or service as part of their inquiry-based passion projects for this year. Hollenbrook is going to increase their opportunities of virtual field trips. They're going to take a group of teachers to the Texpo conference in January. I think they're doing it to discover new opportunities in partnering with individuals in a digital world. Reddington Middle School is going to continue the Sustainable Schools partnerships, mostly done through Mrs. Freeman. They have a nice collaboration with the University of Arts, or Pennsylvania, the Arts Museum. The counseling website is going to be enhanced, and they're going to continue, each grade level is going to continue to identify virtual field trips and add to that bank or that database of field trips. And we are going to assist at the district level to curate these databases so that they're easily accessible and usable for the teachers, in hopes that in the future, our goal is to then embed these in our curriculum documents so that teachers have easy access to all of our partners, as well as our virtual field trips. They'll be coming up this fall. There will be an article in the Reddington News requesting partnerships from community members or anyone that has an area of expertise that they want to add to our schools. So that newspaper article will be going out asking for volunteers to come in and work in our schools, either virtually or in person. And our social awareness goal, one of the themes that you'll see is that this year we're really going to enhance our tier 1 social emotional learning scope and sequence, which was reviewed in Ed Tech and will be board approved. So we now have a curriculum document, if you will, for SEL that's going to be all tier 1 across all buildings. In all buildings, we're also going to implement the Child Assault and Prevention Program, which is a program that's designed to increase student agency and awareness of potential issues, abuse, neglect, bullying. And we're also going to pilot the VETM curriculum, which is a mental health curriculum across all grade levels. We have it from grades 3 to middle school. A highlight is that RMS, we're working on getting our partnership with Hunterdon Behavioral Health up and running. We're still working on identifying a counselor from the hospital that's going to come in and do school-based youth services with our middle school students, which will be a third tier of intervention that we're going to provide for our middle school students. And we talked about that at the board meeting in June. And finally, under the district, you'll see one of the two things that are important. We started doing our diversity, equity, inclusion planning, and we had some training at the leadership team level with teachers from each building. And we also will be applying for our sustainable jersey application and recognition this year, which is something that's going to be a huge accomplishment when we're complete with working on that, but it's something that's a really nice recognition for our district. So aside from our 3 goals, I just want to point out some measurements on how we'll know we've achieved our goals. We'll collect some data in the forms of project completions or deliverables, like the bank of resources, any handbooks that we do, professional development offerings. We'll provide surveys and feedback forms. We'll collect meeting minutes or notes. We will have a completed sustainable jersey application by March, and you will start to see some curriculum revisions like that SEL curriculum that will include our tier 1, social emotional learning program. So I just want to highlight too as well, a 4th goal of ours that we've identified through the Policy and Communications Committee, and one that was even a board goal last year and may very well be a board goal this year, is communication. So why communication? We know that communication is key from the school district to parents and families. And we understand even more fully now how communication really provides some information for our school community. The lessons that we learned from COVID were great in terms of how well and how often we communicated with our parent community. So we wish to expand our communication efforts, not just in terms of the types of communication we send out, but our platforms, in fact. So our goal is really to enhance our school district communications using multiple platforms, including our new website that's up and coming, and also our increased presence in social media, which would be ways to enhance us getting the word out about events, about activities that parents and families can engage in. Some of the measures will be measuring our communication by getting our new website designed and up and running and rolling out within the next, I would say, about 6 weeks or so. We'll do monthly newspaper articles with special highlights, and we are going to enhance our social media presence with some consistent postings. We plan on including news articles and announcements on social media as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention some other major things that are going on in the district this year. Of course, COVID-19 mitigation and management is something that's in the forefront of our minds as we work through the school year and we have all students back. We have curriculum revisions that we are working on that are mandated by the state. We are working on some intervention supports for struggling students, and you'll hear more about this in the next couple of months. This is not only in-school intervention, but also additional opportunities for students who are struggling or where perhaps there are learning gaps due to COVID. We're going to enhance our use of data to drive instruction. We'll be doing some data presentations with the board over the next couple of months. We'll be looking at the next phase of redistricting, and we are looking at enhancing special education and ESL programs. We have added a behaviorist to the district and another ESL teacher because we recognize that those are areas of need for the district. And I know special education is working on some curriculum alignment as well. So these are some of our major initiatives for this year, but remember, we're focusing on our strategic goals. So I'll say thank you. See if anybody has any questions or anything that they'd like me to go back to before I invite Gwen to start her portion of the presentation.
Hi, Dr. Hart. It's Beth Fiore. Just quick question. Can you just tell me what the difference for tier one when you were referring to SEL curriculum stuff?
Sure. So when we talk about different tiers of intervention, let's talk about SEL specifically. Tier one is programming that all students will get in all buildings. So these are classroom lessons that either the teacher or the school counselor do, that are lessons that are designed to improve social emotional learning in terms of our 5 competencies. So these are the times when teachers and school counselors infuse lessons in all classrooms for all students. Tier 2 is if we recognize that there is a smaller group of students, not everyone, but let's say 20% of students, for example, that may require more intensive intervention, visiting the school counselor on a regular basis, or something along those lines, that would be tier 2 intervention. So a student that requires not only tier 1, which is instruction for everybody, but tier 2. I believe even RMS is going to be looking into doing a mentor program like we did last year during COVID, having a student meet with mentors as needed. Then tier 3 becomes more significant intervention. And that's where we have at the middle school, Hunter and behavioral health to provide more intensive intervention for students and can make recommendations for even outside intervention in terms of mental health. Tier 3, we really solidified over at the middle school because we have Hunter and behavioral health and we're still working on it for the other buildings. So tier 1 to 2 to 3 talks about more intensity of services for students that require it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So this isn't necessarily over. This is a presentation of our district goals. And aligned with this, and the reason we're doing it on the same night is we also have Board of Education goals. And I'm going to turn it over to Gwen.
Thank you.
She's just going to, Gwen, I'm going to open up the presentation you shared with me.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be back again in Reddington. It's nice to see you. I hope one of these days soon we'll actually be able to be in person again. And I'm optimistic that that will occur soon. We set board goals regularly. And so it's a pleasure to be back to help you with that process. Can I have the next slide, please, Dr. Hart? And I generally show you this graphic every single time we do it. It's sort of the holy grail of goal setting, because your board goals that Dr. Hart was just describing are the responsibility of administration, but the board goals support the district goals. And so that's why it's important to talk about them in terms of whether you want to make sure that your board goals align to the district goals. And your strategic plan really makes that very easy because they're very specific in terms of acquisitive learning, partnerships, social awareness, and communication. And so I thought it would be helpful to look at last year's goals. And so I have these on a slide. And there may be goals that, as a result of the pandemic and the level of continuity that you need to have, given that we've been out of school for a while, even though I know you were back last spring, but fortunately we're back in now in most districts. You may wish to consider continuing some of these goals just because with the press of business last year and the focus around meeting the needs of the students in a COVID era, which was a huge pivot to something we had never thought we would see in that kind of time frame, you may wish to continue some of these goals. The first one was, again, around improving communication and expanding community engagement, highlighting the district's accomplishment, and again, emphasizing your sustainability and green initiatives. And one of the outcomes for this year that Dr. Hart talked about was completing the sustainability application for all of the schools in the district. So that goal probably remains pretty relevant and certainly I think almost an evergreen goal because I don't think it's possible that you ever reach that level of achievement where you can say we're communicating on every burner 100% of the time. I think that's a challenge for all school districts. And I think COVID really drove that home, how important that communication piece is, and making sure that you're doing it, as Dr. Hart said, on multiple platforms and meeting people where they are. The second one was around budget parameters that plan for enrollment growth, maintain the quality of your educational and co-curricular program while remaining fiscally accountable to the community. Again, that's sort of an evergreen goal. The last time I drove through Reddington on my way out to Hunterdon Medical Center, I noticed increased building in Reddington, because I generally go the back way through your town on my way. So I'm sure that your enrollment continues to increase, and you may have to think about what that looks like and how you're going to address that on an ongoing basis. Continuing to upgrade and refine safety and security measures to ensure student and staff safety, again, is one of those things that, again, I think there's always more room to do. Again, you have obviously completed the integration of SEL across the curriculum. With equity and inclusion. DEI is now part of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So you may want to modify this one a little bit. And additionally, you may want to add something regarding the providing both students and staff with the kind of mental health supports needed as we enter this sort of post-pandemic era. And then the last one was to complete negotiations with your bargaining unit. So you all will have to tell me which of these goals are still relevant, which of these goals you would like to continue, and if there are other areas that you as a Board of Education would like to focus on.
Hi, Gwen. This is Carol.
Hi, Karen. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well, thank you.
So I agree with you on 1 and 2, that those are both okay. And I wonder if we want to, maybe for number 2, we've been working on redistricting
Okay.
in Reddington. So I don't know if we just want to adjust that goal to include just evaluating and adjusting the redistricting plan as we're rolling it out, as we realize the actual need.
Okay.
And then we can come back to number 3. I agree with what you said about including DEI and also students and staff. I think that's important. And we completed our negotiations with the teachers and the administration, so we can yay, so we can take that one off. And again, whether we wanted to address this with number 1, but just to develop collaborations with our local community. For example, we have some exploratory committees with the Township Committee. We have a new incoming chief of police that we have an excellent relationship with the current one. So as he's leaving and a new one coming in, I would like to make sure we keep that same excellent relationship. So those are my thoughts.
Okay. Other board members have thoughts. So let me just see if I have this. You would like to continue from your perspective goals 1 and 2, but you would like to add to develop collaborations with your local governmental entities and partners. Does that?
Unless it should be a separate goal.
And it's very possible it should be. It might replace your negotiations one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the second piece of number 2 that you wanted included was around evaluating and adjusting the redistricting plan to accommodate shifts in population.
Correct.
Right.
And that could be also a separate goal from that, because 1 and 2, like you said, are evergreen. And the redistricting it's a long-term plan that we have right now.
Right. Other board members' thoughts? Eric.
Yeah, I agree that 1 through 4 should remain in place, and I agree with Carol as far as her comments. Obviously, 5 need no longer be there. I think that should be replaced with focusing on the helping recover emotionally and educationally from the disruption of COVID. I mean, there are, on so many levels, it's been so disruptive that we just have to make sure that we're supporting everybody, the students, the staff, the administration, whatever we can possibly do.
Okay. Do you want to incorporate that into the 4th goal around,
Well,
because you've already integrated SEL, and you could add the provide mental health supports for student and staff as needed during recovery from the pandemic?
yeah, I think that's a reasonable place to tuck it in, certainly. I just think that our SEL, we talk about equity and inclusion. I mean, I realize it's sort of in there. I don't know whether we're just trying to shoehorn it into number 4. I mean, however you choose, Gwen. I mean, I think that it's important for us to, whether we put it in there with 4 or make it a separate item under number 5, whatever. I just think that should certainly be one of the board goals. It's been difficult, and it's going to take a while for the district to recover.
Okay. There's another board member with a question or has suggestion.
Well, that's not a board member.
Oh, that's not a board member. Okay.
Hi, this is Julie. I agree with all the prior comments. The one thing I would just raise for consideration or reaction, and would welcome public commentary during that part of the meeting from the members of the community in the communication goal, is just around, the board receives quite a number of correspondence from parents, and I assume that's upticked during COVID. And the responses come from Dr. Hart, and Dr. Hart responds beautifully and professionally in every case, but just wondering if there's opportunity for the president of the board or some representative from the board at times to respond as well, so that parents are hearing from more than one voice.
Typically, among most boards of education, the practice is if it's a board concern that the board is going to address, the board president would respond. But typically, if it's a question regarding any kind of operational issue, which is most of what the COVID questions were, they were operational questions around the day-to-day operations of the district. And so that would be the purview of your administration rather than the Board of Education. Often practice that many boards will have is for the board president to acknowledge receipt of a comment from the public, and it gets sent then and copied obviously to the superintendent for a response, but to let the public, members of the public, know that the board has seen and read their concern. But the answer is going to be coming from, typically in most instances, from your administration appropriately, because many of the questions, particularly in this past year, were operational in nature, because your superintendent is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the district. And I don't know, Dr. Hart, if you want to weigh in on that, or Carol.
Sure. I'm having trouble seeing all of you because I have the presentation up and I don't want to take it down just yet, but I will let you know, Julie, your point is very well taken. When communications do come in, there are, and I don't know if you've experienced it yet this year, in recent months, but there were several instances where I would respond most of the time, but there were instances where Mrs. Simon would respond as well, or in addition, or in lieu of me responding in certain instances. So we do have a protocol in place between me and the board president that kind of, we'll call or we'll talk about, like, who should be responding and how, depending on the nature of the question, exactly like you're talking about, Gwen. But it's something that we always work on communication, and we develop the protocol. Those of you who have been on the board for a couple of years, Several years ago, we talked about exactly how our protocol would go. If that needs revision at some point, we can always go back and talk about it. But, you know, point well taken, Julie. Really good point. But I think there are instances where we have had Laura respond as well, in addition to me, or sometimes even in place of me on occasion. But thank you.
Any other board members wish to weigh in? Do you wish to keep goal number 3 as it from this past year? Because if we add the goal around developing collaborations with our local governmental entities as a separate goal, and we add evaluating and adjusting the redistricting plan to accommodate shifts in student population, that is 4 goals. And I'm not sure, again, going back to Dr. Hart's piece around the focus and how it's important to focus on a few critical pieces. That would seem like more than a full plate to me, but you need to tell me how you feel as a board.
Well, if I could, yeah, I think what everyone's shared, you know, is certainly valid, and then it just becomes, I think maybe to some of what Eric had said, you know, whether it's like wordsmithing or something to incorporate all of those things into the goals, right? I mean, you could rephrase goal number 1 so that it does include
local entities
as well as broadening our efforts, right, beyond our locality. I love what you said, Gwen, about the SEL piece. I know some of the conversations ongoing in Randolph right now, the same. Yes, the focus does need to be on students, but we also have to acknowledge that adults are struggling as well. I mean, I shared today, I'm like, look, I have my bad days as an adult in the building. And, you know, so adults need to sort of reflect on how we're sort of filling one another's cups. Right. And this saying from, it's Dr. Lori Desautel, who we're working with in Randolph. She keeps saying that a dysregulated adult cannot really address dysregulated children. Right. So we need to make sure that the adults in, you know, caring for our children in our classrooms, you know, are in a good mental state as well. Right.
Absolutely.
It be a point of emphasis. So I definitely agree with that. So yeah, I think it's trying to work all this stuff, you know, into the goals, but certainly to keep it, you know, to a minimum number of goals. So that's it. Just want to kind of echo everything that most of us are saying. So yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
I also agree with the comments that have been made from the other board members. I do feel that safety and security, whether it's COVID or not COVID, you know, that's the primary responsibility in any district. So I think it has to be mentioned, like you're saying. So whether it's its own goal or it's incorporated into another goal, but I would keep that because we can never lose sight of the importance of that. And it always should be revisited as how else to, you know, look at what's going on in terms of safety and security. And you always have new staff coming on all the time. And it's something that we should never lose sight of, in my opinion.
I would agree. Absolutely. All right. Well, so are you comfortable? I will work on wordsmithing to incorporate those pieces and send it back to the board very shortly, if you're comfortable with that.
Thank you, Gwen.
Thanks, Gwen.
Okay. All right. I will do that and try to get back to Eric. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That was just a wave of thank you.
Okay.
One of recognition.
Okay. Thank you. No, I just wanted to make sure I don't ever want to cut anybody off. Thank you so much. I will get this back to you. Have a good evening. Thank you for what you do. I know it has been a challenge the last 19 months. I'm thinking this coming year is going to be equally as challenging, maybe in different ways, but thank you for what you do for the children in your community. I appreciate it as a parent and grandparent that there are educators and board members out there willing to do the work. So thank you. And I will get this back to you very shortly. Okay?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening and a good meeting. Bye.
Thanks. Moving on, Mrs. Hempel, I just want to provide the board with a brief verbal report of the opening week. As long as everybody's okay with moving past goals, are we good? Okay. So I wanted to take the opportunity to provide the board with a couple of updates. First, our enrollment currently stands at 1,425 students. This is based off of enrollment that we have from last week. So there may be some fluctuations in the enrollment report for next month, but that's where we stood as of the last time we ran our report. This number reflects approximately 10 students who have disenrolled due to COVID. Last year, we had about 75 disenrollments due to COVID, so many students have re-enrolled. And overall, our enrollment is up 14 students from where we were this time last year. Last September, our enrollment was 1,411. So overall, it's hard to get a real, true, accurate picture of enrollment because of disenrollment, but it appears that enrollment is up from last year. The opening of school went very smoothly. We managed traffic patterns for arrival and dismissal very well. We found that having the early drop-off over at Reddington Middle School does help the early morning traffic flow. As I walked around the buildings, it was clear that students and staff alike were thrilled to be back at school for full days. There was energy in classrooms. Students were engaged in opening week activities, and teachers were really enthusiastic about having all students back in class in person. I saw teachers bringing students outside for class activities on nice weather days. I saw great use of the picnic tables that we ordered and received at the end of the year last year. So it was really nice to see everyone back. Lunch protocols have been smoothed out over the course of the week. There were some hiccups during lunch, considering we're doing a fully free lunch program, but our staff have been making lunch quick, efficient, and enjoyable. This week, we started our breakfast program in all 4 buildings. So we're monitoring how many students are taking their breakfast in the morning. Transportation delays certainly existed on the first few days back. Our buses were delayed at arrival and even dismissal. This was due to ordinary first day of school, getting used to the protocols and procedures and boarding and deboarding buses, learning students and learning their homes and their stops on routes. But it was also due to road closures and detours from the tropical storm as the school year started. But transportation has been operating smooth this week. And finally, I just want to, on a personal note, I'm thrilled to have all students back at school. I really, when we do board tours in November, I think the board will see it, but I want parents and the community and the board to know that I saw nothing but excitement and thrill to have all students back in person to talk with their friends. I always go back and remember how far we've come from last year, and really I see a big difference in this year already. So some positive things for the start of school for this year. And that's all. That's everything I have for my superintendent's report. And I'll turn the meeting back to you, Carol, and any questions from the board.
Hi, it's Beth Fiore. I don't have a question. I just want to comment and say congratulations to the administration and staff and teachers and everyone who had a hand in a very smooth first few days of school. And I can see it on my kids. I was at TBS today for book fair. It was just all smiles and enthusiasm. And I think a very well job done. Oh, I can't even talk. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hart. If there are no other questions, that concludes our superintendent's report, and we move to, we are now open to the public, limited to action items on the agenda.
There was a hand raised earlier, Carol. I don't know if that individual is still here.
She left the meeting. So there were no comments written in the box yet. Okay, so we do have one to read for later. Moving on to correspondence, there's an email from AR regarding request, an email from JP regarding our kids. Moving on to board action. Can I get a motion? Moving on to administrative reports. I haven't done this in a while. Can I get a motion to adopt 1.01?
So move, Beth.
Second, Camille.
Roll call, please.
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Hample,
Yes.
passes.
Moving on to the minutes, can I get a motion to adopt 2.01?
So move, Beth.
Second, Anthony or Tom, whichever.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Hey, Carol, just before you roll call, before you do the roll call, just double check to make sure there's no changes to the minutes or revisions now that the board members read them. Yeah,
Are
no
there any-
problem. I just want to
Are
make
there
sure
any,
that,
any changes or revisions to the minutes? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zwirling,
Yes.
Mrs. Hample,
Yes.
passes.
Finance and facilities, can I get a motion to adopt 3.01 to 3.07?
So moved, Camille.
Can I get a second?
Second, Beth.
And do we have a committee report?
Yes, we do. The Finance Committee met on Thursday, September 9th, and we began by talking about the 21-22 capital projects, starting with the Hollandbrook roofing project. We're currently waiting for supplies, and hopefully we can continue next week. The work will resume after school hours. This project should be completed by the end of September. The change order involving the leak repair will also be completed. The RMS bleachers they've been installed and everything is complete. We are currently planning a training day for our staff to learn how to open and close the bleachers properly. Other maintenance and IT projects include the stair tread, which is the ramp near the cafeteria, is being replaced at RMS. Also, the kindergarten walkway at Three Bridges School. We're still looking at options regarding window repairs. We've assessed windows in all 4 schools, and the oldest windows at White House School and Three Bridges School, including them. All those windows open and close, but we will repair some windows to open them more easily. If we're not able to repair, then we'll replace the windows. In addition, regarding IT, all 5 servers are operational. We're going to hold up on the backup server to review it and allow for best practices regarding district disaster recovery continuity plan. This will also count towards the sustainable Jersey/digital star. There's a plan in place for this server to be in place in October or November. Also, some painting projects were completed this summer, including the Three Bridges music room, RMS guidance office area, and we still need to paint the main hallway at the board office and the White House School first grade hallway. We then discussed 22-23 proposed capital projects. Currently, the reserve balances are as follows. The capital reserve is $3.3 million. Maintenance reserve has $530,000, and the emergency reserve is $125,000. The proposed projects were discussed included the capital reserve. We talked about a roof replacement now for the 5th grade hallway in the art music rooms and the board office at Hollandbrook. Also the curriculum office renovation at Hollandbrook School. We talked about the cupola at Three Bridges School, which would total $1.4 million. The maintenance reserve proposed projects include the rooftop HVAC unit replacement at White House School and Hollandbrook School, and the district-wide outdoor classroom refresh. In addition, a district-wide concrete repairs and hallway tile enhancement at RMS, as well as server network switches, which is 1 card swipe scanner at Hollandbrook School, a stage sound system replacement at Hollandbrook, and the board conference room, audio video enhancement at Hollandbrook School, totaling $220,000. The emergency reserves can only be used for security purposes. We then talked about the supply chain issue and the impact on the timing of the bidding. The third discussion revolved around bus driver shortages, including in Branchburg and the recruitment of bus drivers. So we talked about how to address this bus driver shortage, and possible solutions include planning ahead and contracting out if needed, asking staff and parents if they're interested in obtaining a CDL, possible partnership with Hunterdon Central or the Tewksbury Jointure. We then talked about the American Rescue Plan Committee invitation by the township. This discussion revolved around this invitation from the township committee. Jason Bohm will be on the committee, and Dr. Hart has offered to assist, and we have suggested possibly a board member as well. And then we just planned our next finance meeting for Tuesday, October 5th at 8:30. That's it.
Thank you, Dr. Sorciello. Can I get a roll call, please? Oh,
Carol,
we have a
Eric's hands up.
question.
Yeah.
Eric?
Camille, first of all, thank you very much for very thorough minutes. If it turns out that, Jason, that that you need to replace any of those windows, please make the thermal insulation of those windows part of the criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zerling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample,
Yes.
passes.
Okay, moving on to Ed Tech. Can I get a motion to adopt 4.01 to 4.03?
So moved, Beth.
Second, Camille?
So there is a committee report. I just sent it out right after the meeting started, so my bad. But if you don't mind, I'll read them out now so we don't have to do two of them next month and you're up to date. The Ed Tech committee met on yesterday, September 13th. We discussed the curriculum revisions. So in ID grades 4 through 5, all of these changes to the curriculum were minor changes. Math grade 6 and math kindergarten through grade 1, updated to reflect career ready practices, career awareness, exploration and preparation, life literacies and key skills in computer science. We reviewed the SEL Tier 1 curriculum. These curriculum documents provide monthly themes and activities in which to teach the 5 SEL competencies. They are developed by school and by grade to target each specific need of those grade level students. We reviewed the assessment schedule for 2021 to 2022. The state testing is Start Strong at the end of this month and the NJSLA in May. There will be notifications going out to parents. And we reviewed the schedule for all assessments for the school year. We reviewed the clubs for the 2021-2022 school year and the HSA events for the same school year. Stacy Brown presented evidence showing of science of reading. Evidence showing that our reading writing program is research-based and proven effective. This includes the workshop model supplemented with phonics and word study programs. An update on SEL. There was a diversity training done with the leadership team and a teacher from each school, which occurred in August. A Vidium and CAP will begin in October. An update on Chromebook and iPad distribution. Almost all have been distributed and 80% of the technology fees have been collected. And our next meeting will be Monday, October 4th at 8:30 a.m. Any questions? Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciolo,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zerling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample?
Yes.
Passes.
Thank you. Moving on to personnel. Can I get a motion to adopt 5.01 to 5.13?
So moved, Beth?
Second, Camille.
And we have a committee report, but our chair is not here. And it doesn't look like, okay, I can read them. Give me a second. Okay. The Personnel Committee met on September 9th. We discussed staffing, enrollment projections, redistricting, and updated enrollment projections, COVID testing program according to Executive Order 253, an update on job descriptions, organizational chart, personnel matters, and our next meeting will be Monday, October 4th at 6 p.m. Any questions? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Sosiello?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore?
Yes.
Mrs. Flores?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Zerling?
Yes.
Mrs. Sample?
Yes.
Passes.
Moving on to communication. Can I get a motion to adopt 6.01?
So moved, Beth?
Second, Anthony.
And there's no committee report, correct? Okay. Any questions? Not hearing any. Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Sosiello?
Yes.
Mr. Emmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore?
Yes.
Mrs. Flores?
Yes.
Mr. Wallace?
Yes.
Mr. Zerling?
Yes.
Mrs. Sample?
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business. So those of you who attended the training from Judith Wilson, are there any takeaways that you would like to share with the board?
I can start. I thought she did a really great job. I have never been at one of those board trainings before, and I really got a lot out of it. She was excellent again, and it was just nice to have these kinds of conversations. She provided some excellent reading material as well. And one of the things she pointed out was something called GRIP, G-R-I-P, which stood for goals, roles, interaction, and processes. And she explained kind of our role for each of those and the significance of each of those categories, understanding what the goals are, like we just emphasizing that again, and keep going back to it, what our role is on the board, the importance of interaction and communication, and then understanding the whole processes. So we talked a little bit about that, and I thought that a lot of things that she presented were very refreshing to kind of wrap your head around, and I got a lot out of it. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other comments? All right. Go ahead.
Can public people speak or only the board?
Right now, it's just open to the board, but we'll be opening up to the public in just a few minutes.
I could not tell from your agenda. Thank you.
Moving on to new business from the board. Just a reminder that the New Jersey School Board's annual convention is coming up on October 26th to 28th. It's virtual again this year, and everyone is registered. So you can attend anything that looks interesting to you. Last year, they opened it up. You could look at the layout ahead of time to kind of get a feel for it. So I encourage you to do that for the new board members, just to kind of be prepared for, looking at what you might be interested in attending.
Yeah, Carol, just,
I'm
yeah, I
sorry.
was going to ask, how is, do we, so we're registered for the convention for the 3 days, but as the sessions come up, can we just like pop in and out, or do we have to register for specific sessions, or just kind of want an idea how that works?
Right. So last year you could just pop in and out.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Were there any other questions or new business from the board? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask if anybody had any old business too. Okay, not hearing any. We are now open to the public. So, ma'am, if you wanted to speak now, you have the opportunity.
Oh, okay, I have several questions. Paula Trapello, used to be on the school board. 3 kids raised in the system, been here for 40 years. They all did very well, so I love Reddington. Thank you for the work that you all do. But I do apologize for asking this question because it's probably been answered. Unfortunately, I was driving to the school because the other township meetings are in person, and your website had a /virtual in-person agenda. So could you please tell me when you will be meeting in person and why you're not? For the public to attend. I mean, we put up with a year and a half of not being there. So when are you going to have actual meetings in person?
Carol, I can let you know that Jason and I are here. Any member of the public that doesn't have access to, technology at home, the
But
doors
that's not the issue. So why, if the rest of the township meetings are in person, is the board not? It seems to me you are a township committee. We pay 80% of our taxes go to the school. So why are your meetings excluded from being public? What is your rationale?
So
it's a little hard to be a watchdog when you're sitting in your house and you can't get on.
Well, as Dr. Hart said, the board office is open for anyone who would like to attend the meeting.
Well, that was not clear. Okay, and I drove to both schools. Are you not at Reddington Middle?
We're at the Reddington Board of Ed office, which is located with Hollenbrook School.
Okay, and I drove over to Hollenbrook too, because I only live very nearby, up Pleasant Run, and I saw 3 cars. I did not see any signs or indication that the public was welcomed. And I went to the door of Reddington Middle. So I apologize for not knowing that. But again, I don't understand why you're not having regular public meetings like the township has reinitiated. Could you please let us know? What is the rationale for that? Because you're having school, why wouldn't you have meetings in person?
I'll just mention, Carol, I don't know if you wanted me to just review last time, when last the board met, last month when we met.
Yeah, most people were on vacation. Yeah, okay.
Carol, would you like me to continue?
Yes, please, Dr. Hart.
Last month, when the board met virtually, we received clarification about the 2 things that have been going on in the state. One is the state of emergency that's been declared, and then the second is the public health emergency that's also been declared. We sought clarification from our board attorney and asked, at what point does the board have to return to public in-person meetings and discontinue virtual meetings? The question was answered that because we are still in a state of emergency, although the public health emergency has ended, the board has the option of meeting either in person or virtual. So when we discussed this briefly at our last meeting, and in previous meetings, I believe, and Mrs. Sample, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that the board has liked the public participation that has been received from virtual meetings because we have a lot of folks that show up to our meetings in a virtual setting. Parents who are at home are able to participate from their home. In addition, what we said at our last meeting in August was that we would make sure that the board office was open and that Jason and I, the business administrator, and I as the superintendent are here in the board office should any member of the public wish to come to the board office in person. We are here. The building is open. I believe, Jason, there are signs on the board office windows that welcome people to come in and direct them. So,
oh my God, no wonder I didn't see it. You know, and I apologize because there is a gap in what you're saying and I'm saying, so I'm hearing echoes. So I'm probably talking over you, and I really do apologize. I actually am a retired dean, so I do know how to use Zoom and virtual. The question is, I don't understand why you're not providing both. I don't think that's a very good explanation, to be very honest, because it shows me that the township was very willing to reopen their public meetings. And there was no mention on your website that I could come over, even though I did drive over. I absolutely, there was nothing that led me to believe on your website or there that I could come in. My bad that I was out of town for your last meeting. But I do think it's very disingenuous to the public in Redington that you are not providing full in-person board meetings, and you can still have virtual while you do that, as you are fully aware. I just got off of a webinar with a very large hospital board that I'm on, and the reason I was late to this meeting and drove over, and they're doing both. So I don't think it has to do with COVID numbers. COVID numbers are not high, and the state of emergency, you know, I don't understand why it exists for Redington School and not for the township, since the township is, you know, where we pay our taxes. So I will push for that and ask for a better explanation. I think it's incumbent upon your board to rethink that and to have full disclosure of everything that you're doing. It's very hard to, I think you're providing the best of both worlds when you do that. I don't think you're necessarily providing the best of both worlds when you're only providing virtual or phone. I'm sorry to say. And I think in addition, I think it's an easy way out. And I think that you need to rethink it. It has nothing to do, then children should not be at school if you can't be there as adults. And the public can't be there. We can certainly all wear masks like they do at the township buildings. Again, I'm sorry if I missed this conversation before, but I'm very upset about it. I wanted to ask things about critical race theory. I wanted to ask about budget remunerations. Were there any grants? Were there any tax rebates when you were closed? Has anybody looked into any of that? I had a lot of questions, but I suppose I'll have to.
If you would like to follow up offline, then we can answer some more of your questions.
I would like to do it in a public forum, and I think you should be videoed like the township meetings. There's no reason that you shouldn't be.
We are
And
videoed
I'll
like the
rest
township
my
meeting.
case.
We are videoed at the township meeting, and as Dr. Hart said, we are offering virtual and in-person meetings. So we are doing both, and we are.
So how many people are at your meet? How many people know? Because my neighbors do not know that.
We have,
you know, this,
we have
how
more
many
people
are
attending.
there?
We have more people attending our meetings now because we are offering them virtually. That was why we decided to continue to host them virtually, because we have never had the participation that we have now. There are currently 31 people.
Agree. Same with church, same with everything. I'm saying the primary meeting format, though, should be in person since the township is. That's my thing. Sorry, I'll rest my case. I got to say it. Thank you for listening. Very disappointed that you guys are doing it this way, because you can do it the other way and have primary in person and still offer virtual. I don't think virtual will ever end. Hopefully this nonsense will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mrs. Fiore, we had a comment to read from Colleen Clark.
Yeah, and I noticed that Colleen has a comment in the comment box as well, which is related. So I don't know if you want me to, that's sort of a shortened version of it, or I can read the, let me read the one that was
Yes,
submitted.
the long one, please. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So from Mrs. Clark. Upon review of the board agenda for tonight, I have the following questions. Number 1, can the road forward Readington Ready 21-22 travel section, page 9, be updated to be consistent with the road forward health and safety guidance for the 21-22 school year as prepared by the NJDOE and NJDOH, last updated on 9/1/2021, which states, while there is no statewide travel advisory or mandate in place at this time, schools are encouraged to have a policy for exclusion for students and staff that is consistent with CDC COVID-19 travel recommendations. The CDC recommends that travel be delayed for those who are not fully vaccinated. If travel cannot be delayed, domestic and international travelers who are not fully vaccinated should get tested with a viral test 3 to 5 days after travel and stay home and self-quarantine for a full 7 days after travel, even if they test negative. If testing is not completed post-travel, individuals should self-quarantine for 10 days. International travelers who are fully vaccinated should also get tested with a viral test 3 to 5 days after travel, self-monitor for symptoms, and isolate and get tested if symptoms develop. For those traveling to from New Jersey, domestic travel is defined as lasting 24 hours or longer to states or U.S. territories other than those connected to New Jersey, such as Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware. End quote. And number 2, can the district begin testing of the unvaccinated population in accordance with the matrix provided in the public health recommendations, but implementing COVID-19 screening testing in K-12 schools, updated August 30th, 2021. Additional funding has been made available to districts. That's the end.
Mrs. Sample, would you like me to respond?
Yes, please, Dr. Hart.
Sure. I'll start with the travel. First, I'll start by saying any comments or suggestions from the public in regard to COVID-19 are answered the best we can and or taken under advisement. So I'll start with the travel question. When I presented to the Board of Ed last month, we discussed that our guiding principle was to return to as much full-time in-person instruction as possible. That's our guiding principle. We recognize that in-person instruction has the most impact for our students and what we hope that they achieve. When it comes to travel, I got the information right off of the New Jersey Department of Ed travel website, and there are no travel restrictions that are being implemented at this point. However, what you read, Beth, does appear in the road forward. But what I find is that the suggestion from Mrs. Clark is more restrictive. So if our goal is to have students be in school as much as possible, taking a recommendation such as domestic travel restrictions and quarantine for domestic travel restrictions would essentially put students out on quarantine more. So that was part of the rationale. Using the travel page and then looking at our guiding principles was part of the rationale on why the road forward, our Readington Ready document is written the way it is. I did a brief poll of the Hunterdon County or Hunterdon Central Sending region, my poll, unless they didn't understand my question, poll indicated that I don't believe any Hunterdon Central Sending district is doing any kind of quarantine for domestic travel. So we're all following as consistently as possible, trying to follow recommendations, but also trying to balance the restrictions and the mitigation measures with our guiding principle, which is having kids be in school as much as possible. That's the rationale behind travel, but the comments certainly will be taken under advisement and consider revision in the future. When it comes to testing unvaccinated, I presume, unless Ms. Clark, you want to clarify this for me, but I'll answer the way I believe it's written. When you talk about testing being for the entire unvaccinated population in accordance with the matrix, At this point, first of all, at this point, the funding is available, and we will be coordinating and contracting with the state in order to provide a vendor to do the testing likely on our campus on a regular basis. That has not been set up yet. So the funding is available, the contracts are out, and the state is going to assist us with doing that. So part one of your question, which it might be, I don't know, let me know, is can we do it now? And the answer to that question is we can do it once the vendor is set up and once it's available from the state, because they're going to give us start to finish services to be able to do regular testing on our campus. The second part of the question is, I believe, and clarify for me if I'm not answering this correctly, is the entire unvaccinated population. I presume that to be both staff and students. We will be following the executive order, and we will be doing the testing for the staff, per the executive order, and we will make it available to students and families should they want to make themselves available for the testing, but it's not something that we are yet mandating. And I at this point, unless it becomes an executive order and we can talk about it at that point, I'll offer to students and families, but won't be mandated for the entire population. We're going to stick it within the confines of the executive order.
Ms. Clark, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate it. The one question I have is if the New Jersey Department of Education and the New Jersey Department of Health is recommending following the CDC travel guidelines, why wouldn't we incorporate those into our road forward, especially if we're concerned about the safety and the security of our students and our staff?
The best I can do is answer that with the observations that I've had about domestic travel in particular over the course of the past 19 months of the pandemic. In terms of the fact that I have not yet seen any type of correlation between travel alone and then positive cases coming into school. The observations that I've made over the course of the time that we've had the pandemic is if you ask me what is the most riskiest behavior in terms of transmission, it's in-home transmission. And this is anecdotal on my part. I'm not a public health expert, but travel and travel alone is not something that we have seen as we've collected numbers of positive cases and close contacts as being a risky proposition for families to engage in. Family gatherings, in-home transmission becomes the more transmissible type of behavior that folks could engage in. I certainly would take it under advisement and certainly think about it, but remember, it compromises our guiding principles. There's no right answer here, right? Quarantining domestic travel, a child that goes to visit grandma or grandpa in Maryland is going to take that student out of school if that's something that we choose to, a recommendation that we choose to follow. I need to give that some more thought because I think that's pretty significant.
Can I make a comment?
I believe it's Ms. Foster's turn to speak.
Dr. Foster, are you there?
Hi, thank you. Sorry.
That's okay.
I just wanted to make a comment in response to her asking about that because I was just wondering if, the weather's still really warm out and if we're putting any restrictions on the staff or the students from going to the beach right now because of the chances of them being killed by a shark.
Wonderful. I love it.
Because right now, understand, as per the CDC, the chances of a child dying from COVID is 1 in 22 million. And the chances of a child or a person being killed by a shark is 1 in 5 million. So are we putting restrictions on our families for their safety and our staff for their safety at this time in all capacities? Because this is really what we're we're asking. I mean, we're all trying to find ways to move forward. I really have to admire Dr. Hart, and I have been back and forth on a lot of issues, and I really can see how much thought he's giving things. And I really just want to present the CDC's own numbers. I mean, think about this. The chance of a child dying from COVID is 1 in 22 million. That is the CDC's numbers. So if we could keep that in mind as we move forward, if that's our goal, you know, with just applying basic common sense like we always have for our whole lives, and also not discounting that there is natural immunity in this factor, I just think that that number should not be ignored. And I just wanted to make that comment for tonight. And I appreciate you guys very much. I do. I know it's been really hard, but I don't know how we can sit back and not take these numbers that the CDC themselves are putting out and not keep them as a factor.
Thank you, Dr. Foster.
You're welcome.
You're muted.
Carol, I think you're muted.
Sorry. I lost the order here. Ms. Clark, did you have something else, or was your hand still raised from earlier?
Thank you. I did, because I know Dr. Hart was asking about what the testing matrix that I was referring to. There is page 5 of the, I guess it's the K-12 screening testing guidelines that actually has a screening testing matrix based on the COVID-19 activity levels. So as the schools are trying to offer more extracurricular activities, the Department of Health is actually recommending different testing based on our activity level. So at a moderate level, students would have to have about 10% of the unvaccinated population would be tested once per week. And then there's additional testing requirements for sports and high risk extracurricular activities. So that's, I'm just trying to understand what risks we are taking. And if we're going to have testing on site at the schools anyway, why not take advantage of that and start testing the unvaccinated population just until they're eligible to be vaccinated?
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Were there any other
I'll just
comments?
say that I'm familiar with the matrix. I'm aware of the matrix, and I'll just say again, we don't have testing yet set up on site. You know, when we do, we'll offer it if it's a service that families and students would like to have available to them. You know, I don't see us being able to do anything medically, you know, and look, I could be wrong. I cannot necessarily predict the future, but I don't know if I can see us doing anything mandated medically with students without parental consent. So it'll be available once it's set up. And we will cross that bridge when we come to it.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Comments? Not hearing any. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So move, Beth.
Second, Julie.
Can I get a roll call, please?
Dr. Cerciello,
Yes.
Mr. Emmons,
Yes.
Mrs. Fiore,
Yes.
Mrs. Flores,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace,
Yes.
Mr. Zerling,
Yes.
Mrs. Sample.
Yes, and the time is 8:22 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and enjoy
Thank
the rest
you.
of your
Good night.
Have a great night, everybody.